From wars and regional conflicts to assassination attempts during a chaotic US presidential election and health problems for the British royals, 2024 delivered its fair share of tragedy, heartache and pain around the world. Brett McLeod looks back on the biggest moments of the year.
If there was one moment which defined the chaos and uncertainty of 2024, it was this. Donald Trump targeted by an assassin's bullet. And a moment later, he provided an instantly iconic image. US election years always get enormous attention, but none more so than this one, especially when the incumbent president was battling questions about his age and the Republican candidate spent much of his time in courtrooms facing criminal charges. In March, Trump became the first former American president to become a convicted felon.
Count 1, guilty. Count 2, guilty.
A New York jury found he tried to influence the 2016 election through a hush money payment to adult film star Stormy Daniels. He also faced court hearings over the January 6 riots, election interference and mishandling classified documents. But Joe Biden was also struggling in questions of his health, brought starkly into the spotlight during their only presidential debate.
The total initiative relative to what we can do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
The 81-year-old took several weeks before he finally announced he would not run for re-election, anointing his Vice President Kamala Harris as the Democratic candidate. She had little more than 100 days to try to present herself as the alternative president.
Face to face for the very first time, the prosecutor and the convicted felon.
People start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom.
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in, they're eating the cats.
A major boost for the former president came from SpaceX and Tesla billionaire Elon Musk.
Put the signs up, put the hat on, let's go!
Who launched himself into the Republican campaign and seemed to replace vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance as Trump's right-hand man. As the votes were counted on election night, it wasn't long before it was clear the national mood in the US was for change. In a back-to-the-future way, President 45 would become President 47.
Donald Trump will be the President of the United States from January next year.
We just witnessed the greatest political comeback in the history of the United States of America.
Look what happened. Is this crazy?
A remarkable turnaround in fortunes for a man who was facing the prospect of jail at the start of the year.
He won the popular vote, the Electoral College, the Senate and possibly the House of Representatives.
In the Middle East, Israel's unyielding military response to the October 7 Hamas massacre the year before continued past the 12-month anniversary, leaving tens of thousands of people dead in Gaza and others facing atrocious conditions. Israeli President Benjamin Netanyahu was outraged by war crimes charges against him from the International Criminal Court.
Israel does not recognize the validity of this decision,
even as he faced protests and a corruption trial at home. The Israeli military claimed some prize targets this year. The most sought after, the mastermind of the Hamas attack, which claimed 1,200 Israeli lives.
Breaking news moments ago, Israel confirming that the leader of Hamas and October 7th mastermind Yahya Sinwar is dead.
6 remaining Israeli hostages were rescued, but the fate of more than 90 others remains unknown. While in Lebanon, Hezbollah's leadership was delivered a stunning succession of blows as the Israeli Air Force carried out more than 1,600 strikes in 24 hours. Leader Hassan Nasrallah was killed in one attack, which involved more than a dozen 2,000-pound bombs.
Mid-afternoon in a busy market, a huge bang sends people running.
An extraordinary covert mission using exploding pages and detonating walkie-talkies decimated much of the remaining leadership of Hezbollah. Once again, civilians also suffered, with estimates some 1,400 were killed and 1 million Lebanese people displaced. In response, Iran launched its first ever direct missile strike against Israel, but most were destroyed in flight. Israel pounded and substantially weakened Iran's missile capabilities. Then just this month, yet another tectonic shock in the region. After almost 5 decades of family rule, Syria's Bashar al-Assad was forced to flee as rebel forces closed in. Amid celebrations on the streets, the horrors inside Assad's prisons were revealed.
I'm a civilian, he says. I'm a civilian. He tells the fighter he's from the city of Homs and has been in the cell for 3 months.
Israeli forces used the chaos to destroy much of Syria's military hardware and seize contested land in the Golan Heights. Syria had been a key ally of Hezbollah, Iran and Russia, so the future of the Middle East remains unclear until, if and when, the dust settles. And Israel's longest-serving leader ending another year having seen off those who would have him ousted. Initially planned to last 3 days, Russia's invasion of Ukraine is grinding towards its 3rd anniversary. After months of bloody stalemate, Ukraine brazenly seized more than 1,000 square kilometres of Russian territory, the first successful foreign invasion since World War II. But President Volodymyr Zelensky made increasingly desperate pleas for military aid, as his nation's supply of soldiers and munitions was continuously tested by Russia's superior numbers. The incoming Trump administration and some fierce Republican opposition to military funding, leaving Zelensky facing perhaps the greatest challenge since the opening days of the war.
What do you think about Donald Trump? I mean, we have to work with the new president.
While in Russia itself, one of the world's most famous political prisoners and de facto opposition leader Alexei Navalny died in prison. His defiance against Putin's regime led others to risk arrest just so they could put flowers on his memorial. And after a 14-year legal battle involving Australia, the UK and the US, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange was freed from a British prison and allowed to return to Australia.
He didn't look back as he took his first steps of freedom.
He'd accepted a deal to plead guilty to one charge relating to the leaking of US military secrets in Iraq and Afghanistan. And just before the year ended, 5 other Australians, the remaining members of the Bali Nine, were granted their freedom 19 years after they were arrested in a drug bust in Indonesia.
I have conveyed my personal appreciation to President Prabowo for his act of compassion.
In Britain, the sickening stabbing murders of 3 primary school children led to shocking scenes of mob violence. A social media post falsely claiming the attacker was a Muslim asylum seeker led to riots across the country, police often a target. Hundreds of the rioters were sentenced to years in jail as the British-born teenager accused of the original murders awaits his own trial. Every year brings speculation about the health of the monarchy, but that became quite literal this year.
Buckingham Palace has announced that the King is being treated for cancer. He will continue with state duties but will step back from public engagements during his treatment.
While Princess Catherine's absence for the public eye for several months prompted wild speculation about her health and that of her marriage. Until in March she announced that, like her father-in-law, she too was undergoing cancer treatment following abdominal surgery.
The surgery was successful. However, tests after the operation found cancer had been present.
Kate's returned to the public eye, joining the other senior royals on the Buckingham Palace balcony after trooping the colour.
While today is about celebration of the King, all eyes have been on the Princess, Kate, as she makes her return to public life in the most public way possible.
2024 was another year of catastrophic weather events, none more so than Hurricane Milton, which cut a devastating path through the US and Mexico. The public execution of a health executive in New York was not only shocking, but sparked fears of vigilantism against other corporate leaders. And in a very French way, that country's government almost collapsed, the Prime Minister was ousted, and the beauty of the restored Notre Dame put on display, all in the same week. But no one had a more unexpected year than Suni Williams and Butch Wilmore. Rocketed into space for a week-long trip in June, their Boeing Starliner developed mechanical issues, so they've been stranded on the International Space Station until at least February.
But it also gives you a time to change your perspective on a lot of things. It really is difficult for me to imagine people on Earth not getting along together. It's the one planet we have, and we should all really be happy that we're there together, because that's it. That's our place.
What sort of world will they return to in 2025? Brett McLeod, 9 News.